Our platform matters. Fighting for those principles matters. Elections matter. And because elections matter, our party matters. Us being able to do what we do and win campaigns matters, because if you don't win, you can't govern. Losers do not make policy. Losers do not get a phone call about what the tax rates ought to be or what we ought to teach in our schools. It doesn't happen. We have to win. That's the business of our party, is winning elections. And I'm proud to say that here in South Carolina, for Republicans, business has been booming. Thanks to so many of you here in this room, and I sincerely appreciate it. We had, in the last election, the most Republican wins in the modern day history of South Carolina, here in this state. The biggest Republican legislative majority since the 1870s. No small feat. We've now beat Democrats on straight ticket voting in the last 5 elections, the last 2 times by over 20 points. Straight ticket voting here in South Carolina. We've now got more sheriffs, more clerks of court, more probate judges, more coroners, more county council majorities than at any time since Sherman left town. It's been a long time, I promise you. Local offices, though, is, to me, as I mentioned earlier, is the future of our party. As we look around and we look at party growth and where we're likely to continue to grow in the future, we look at those local races. And I've seen many an election where a sheriff's race or some other local race can outpoll a presidential race. Local issues matter. Those local races matter. They make a difference. Just back in 2016, no matter how many, as we look here in South Carolina, we see how many races Republicans have won here for president on down for so many decades, and folks from the outside looking in and they look at South Carolina and they think of us as a bright red state. Well, up underneath the surface at the local level, up until 2016, 56% of all local elected partisan offices in South Carolina were still held by Democrats. And I'm proud to say that today, 62% of all local elected partisan races are held by Republicans in South Carolina today. But that doesn't happen by accident. We can't take it for granted. It is not permanent. There is no such thing as a permanent red state or a permanent blue state. Permanent red district or blue district, all there is the next election. And we either do it right or we do it wrong. We're on the path to continuing to grow, or somebody's starting to subtract, and we're going to have problems. And we've got to be on guard in every election cycle to be about addition and multiplication, not subtraction and division. We'll leave that to the Democrats. The only guarantee is that there is another election, and we've got to be ready for it. Fighting for our principles and defending our values never stops. We can't always count on, as much as we might think so, and as much as today it looks like we can't always count on the Democrats to be crazy. It's nice, don't get me wrong. You know, I like to see them selling what they're trying to sell. But we can't count on them always trying to be crazy. And I think they're starting to come around to that idea that they might have a problem. I heard here recently they're talking about trying to change their nomination process here. Because what they've been doing hasn't been working so well. They've been losing more and more races over the years here in South Carolina, and they're talking about trying to change it and kicking around some ideas, and they were looking at reality TV as a possible, model that they might look at. And basically what they've settled on is something akin to what we would call the Democrat Survivor Tour here in South Carolina. Basically, they'll take all their candidates, and they'll start out here in Columbia. They'll do a tour around the state. Start and go from Columbia to St. Matthews, down to Walterboro, to Monk's Corner, up to King Street, to Socastee, to Sherrill, Chester, Union, Pickens, Anderson, to McCormick, to Edgefield, Red Bank, Lexington, and then back to Columbia. Each of the candidates will be wearing a COVID mask. They'll be driving a pink Toyota Prius, and they'll have 13 bumper stickers on the back of the car. You've seen these cars that the whole back end is covered with bumper stickers, and you think, well, it's so nice for you to tell me exactly what you are. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. They'll have 13 bumper stickers on the back of all the cars, and they'll basically, all of your usual Democrat slogans and so forth, like proud to be a Democrat, coexist. You love that one, don't you? The coexist stickers. Kamala for president. Now, we don't know if that's 24 or 28. We hadn't figured that out yet, but Kamala for president sticker. You got the rainbow stickers with LGBTQIA++ minus question mark. Trump is the devil. That's another one they'll have on the back. From each according to his paycheck. Y'all think about that one and it'll make sense. Amnesty for illegals. Transgender rights are human rights. Abolish the police. I hate mustard-based barbecue. Then you know they got to go. That's it for me. Just cut them off right there. I love Rosie O'Donnell. Dr. Fauci was right. And the last one says, I'm here to confiscate your guns. The first candidate that makes it all the way back to Columbia alive wins the nomination. So they're trying to, make sure that they can survive contact with the general public. We'll see how it goes. But at the end of the day, we can't count on them to continue to be crazy. Like I said, we have a big choice election ahead of us. And of course, we got the issues at the national level, but all that filters its way down to the local level. In every race that we face, all across the state, it's basically the same thing. People who want to tear down our past, tear down the things that work versus building the future. The cancel culture versus the traditional American culture. Socialism versus freedom. Democrats have become the party of chaos. The party of chaos. Whether it's in business, taxes, trade, illegal immigration, abortion, defunding the police, you name it, on and on. Party of chaos. More and more, year after year, they're proving themselves to be exactly what we've been saying that they are for the last 30 or 40 years. Now they're out and loud and proud about it. So my solution is give them a microphone, let them speak, let them talk, let them sell. The more they do, the better off we'll do, but we still have to do our job. We cannot get comfortable. The road to Democrat victories in South Carolina runs through a lazy Republican Party. We cannot be lazy. As we look back into Scripture and over in Proverbs, Solomon had so much to say about this. And one of my favorite portions is over in Proverbs chapter 24. It says, I went by the field of the lazy man and the vineyard of the man devoid of understanding, and there it was, all overgrown with thorns. The surface was covered with nettles. The stone wall was broken down. And when I saw it, I considered it well. I looked on it and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come like a prowler, and your need like an armed man. When we get lazy, bad stuff happens. We have to remember how we got here. We got here because of a lot of hard work from people in this room and people who came before us, people whose shoulders that we stand on today. Continuing to focus on doing the work is what will continue to win elections here in South Carolina. Rededicating ourselves to those fundamentals of having a good message that resonates with people, where they understand what we believe and why and how it matters to them, building the organization that we need to turn out our votes, and then raising the money to make it all possible. Those three things don't change. Good money, good organization, good message. That's how we win. If we continue to do that, then in this cycle, we'll continue to beat Democrats up and down the ballot and all across South Carolina. And I thank y'all all so much. Give y'all all of you, the Elephant Club members and donors, a round of applause for everything that you do for our party. Now, this time, speaking of winning elections, it is my privilege to be able to introduce to you and call up to the microphone not just our Attorney General, but the man who's going to carry our banner into this election for Governor, Alan Wilson.
All right, are we having fun tonight? I can't hear you. One more time, are we having fun tonight? All right, this side's a little louder than this side. Let's try one more time. Are we having fun tonight? Thank you, thank you. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. First off, Drew got me nervous when he was speaking a little earlier in the program. He says the first thing you don't do is don't forget to introduce your spouse. And if I started to get into my remarks, which are going to be brief, okay, I'm going to say that up front, I would forget to say something about my spouse. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you, for those of you who never met her or seen her, to the next First Lady of South Carolina, Jennifer Wilson, sitting right over here. Stand up. Governor McMaster. That's my favorite wife, Jennifer. That's my favorite wife. I don't know what you say. Also, I'm looking around the room, folks, and I'm seeing some uniformed officers and some non-uniforms that are in here. They're here tonight to keep us safe, and they do this every single night. And we also have wait staff that are, you probably can't see them, they're busy scurrying about, making sure that we're served. Let's give all of these people a round of applause. So in just a minute, I'm going to introduce our keynote speaker. You're here to hear him, not me, and I'm going to make this really quick, but I do want to say one thing. I kind of look at this room, and I've said this a number of times. I see a family. And if you know anything about families, and we all come from families. We love our families. Do we always like our family members? No. Everybody has been at a Christmas or a Thanksgiving or a family reunion where you have the obnoxious uncle or the crazy aunt or the kids running around screaming, they're just driving you nuts and stuff. We've all been in those situations where our families sometimes frustrate us. They make us angry. Maybe we disagree with things that they say. But the thing is, they're still our family. And I look out in this audience here, and I see a community of people. Some of you I've known for many years. Some of you I've recently met. Some of you I don't really know yet, but I'm looking forward to getting to know you. But I see you as my Republican family. I mention that for this reason. A couple of months ago, I went through a very contentious primary, and I ran against some really good people. They were not my enemies, they were my competitors. And I know that during a family argument, which is what a primary is, things get hot. Things are probably tense right now. But I want all of you to know this. To all the people who were with me from the beginning and those who eventually jumped on board in the runoff, I want to say thank you. It means a lot to me. I'm honored to have had your vote from the beginning. There's a lot of people in this room. You were also members of my family, and you supported other people. And that's good. We have a broad party. But I want to say this. Thank you to everyone who has either come up to me already and said, hey, you weren't my first or second choice, but I'm 1,000% on board with you now. And I'm with you because of what it means for us to win in November. Ladies and gentlemen, you gave me a lot of grace. For those of you that joined the Wilson team after the election was over, and I'm here to now finally say thank you for giving me a chance to carry the banner into November. Tonight, when I was listening to the Republican creed, I was listening to the words of what it meant. Now, I want you to think about this. Do you think about the people that are running against us in November? Do you think they believe in that creed the way that we do? They do not. That is why it is so important that families have their arguments, they have their fights, they get frustrated with each other, but they come back together because they're still family. My ask of everyone in this room tonight is this. There are two wonderful people representing us in a special election runoff right now. They're good people. And many in this room have chosen a candidate. Some of you may still be undecided. Get behind your candidate, fight for them, do everything you can to get them elected. But regardless of the outcome, when the family feud is over, come back and be part of the family, because what's at stake in November is so much greater than you could possibly imagine if we stay divided and fractured. I'm going to wrap up my thought on that, and then I'm going to introduce our keynote. My thought on that is this. I'm a man of faith, and I believe this. I do not deserve the grace that my God gives me, just like no one in here deserves the grace God gives them. But sometimes we feel like we're too good to give grace to people who upset us. My ask of everyone in this room is to pray about it, to find the grace. When this primary is over in a week and a half, find the grace to move past it. And let's go win this thing in 2 months. Let's do it. We can do it together. Now, I want to talk about our keynote speaker tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I love being your Attorney General. I've been the Attorney General now going on 16 years. David Stumbo, you're about to have the time of your life, because you're going to meet some of the most You're going to meet some of the best people you have ever met in your life. I have met some incredible people who have become lifelong friends, like brothers from other mothers, sisters from other misters, people that I just love. I've been in the trenches with them. One of those people is here tonight. This is someone that I was actually Attorney General before him, and he got to be governor before me, and so I kind of sherped him in when he came into RAGA back in 2015, I believe. And then I'm hoping he'll hold my hand here in a couple of months as I get into the governor's job. But I'm going to tell you something about Jeff Landry. First off, Louisiana has some of the most colorful political people you could ever imagine, right? I was with John Kennedy the other night. I love Louisiana politics. I love watching Louisiana politics. Let me say it that way. I don't love Louisiana politics. I love watching it. But they're very colorful people. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, then Attorney General Jeff Landry invited me to his annual gator hunt, which started off, I think, as a couple of people shooting gators in the bayou, and it turned into a small fundraiser, which now has turned into almost on par with Mardi Gras. Like, it is the event, it is the I've seen movie stars and country music singers, and I was there with Don Jr. about 2 years ago, members of Congress, governors from all over the state, billionaires, millionaires, people coming into this thing. You wake up in the morning and you look outside the cabin door and Waffle House is preparing your breakfast. You're eating, seriously, Waffle House, preparing breakfast, and then you're eating Cajun food all day long. You get to go out and hunt gators, and you get to meet some amazing people. Speaking of Waffle House, one of the first things I think I might do, I might take a page out of your book. I read an article where you put a Waffle House in the governor's mansion in Louisiana. So I might have to do that. I might have to find a Waffle House in the governor's mansion. Open 24/7. Y'all come, all right? But when I got to meet Jeff Landry, ladies and gentlemen, what an eclectic person he is. I love this guy. I love his politics. I love the fact that he loves our country. I love listening to him talk. You know, just listen. You'll hear him in a minute. You know, that Cajun accent. You know, I just love listening to you talk. Alan, how you doing, brother? You know, just the way he talks. That's great. But I love his history of service. Jeff, Governor Landry, was not only a police officer, but you were a sheriff's deputy at one point. He served in the Louisiana National Guard for 11 years, attaining the rank of sergeant. He served his country. That is something I can relate to. I love that. Served a term in Congress, right? He's an ex-con. And he was there for a term. Your district got redrawn, so he wasn't able to stay in Congress, but he came back 2 years later, ran for Attorney General in 2015, got elected Attorney General, and then he and I, that is when we started to work together. We were in the huddle together. We were in the trenches together. We were in the foxhole together. You pick the metaphor. We were there together back during the worst of the worst. We were there fighting against some of the worst things you've seen coming out of the federal government, whether it was defending parental rights, the Second Amendment, religious liberty, fighting against federal government overreach, trying to keep the respective states in power as opposed to the federal government being over the states, trying to defend the Constitution. This guy and I, there was no daylight between us, and that is why I love the fact that he is now the governor of Louisiana. I hope he tells you the story about how he became the emissary, was the emissary to Greenland? I don't know how the Louisiana governor becomes like the emissary to Greenland under the Trump administration, but that's the kind of person he is. He's a utility player. He's a 5-star utility player. He's doing great things for the people of Louisiana. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to be able to introduce my dear friend Jeff Landry, and I'm going to ask him to come up here right now, and before you applaud him, I want to show some Southern hospitality to Jeff Landry. Now, y'all can see he's a bit of a flashy dresser. I'm not, all right? I thought you'd be here in a white linen suit, but this did say black tie optional. And I wanted you to feel comfortable, Governor. I wanted you to feel like if this was an event, a black tie event in Louisiana, that we could dress appropriately. So I called a good friend of mine, and I'm going to ask my good friend Adam if he would come up here. I asked Adam if he could go ahead and bring down some Cajun formal wear so that we could wear this for you guys tonight. So I wanted you to feel comfortable when you're giving your speech, Governor. So let's go ahead and let's put on our Louisiana Cajun tuxedos.
How are y'all tonight? Oh my God, it's so much fun. I want you to know something, a couple of things. You know, I understand that my distinguished senator was here a couple of days ago. I want you to know that his accent is the one that's east of the Mississippi River. Mine is west. And he is an absolute character, and I would never pretend to be able to make you laugh with as many one-liners as he's gotten. I tell him all the time that, you know, when he decides to hang it up, the only thing I ask is for him to give me that little book he's got with all those great quirks. John is just such a wonderful and great senator. And I got to tell you, I love being here in South Carolina. This is really kind of like a dream come true. I don't think you all realize how much I love South Carolina. I think that South Carolina and Louisiana have a lot of things in common. In fact, while I was campaigning throughout Louisiana to run for governor, I used to talk about South Carolina and about the way that y'all got it right, you know, some 30 years ago. And Louisiana was kind of one of the southern states that was actually a little bit late to the dance. And I fell in love with folks from South Carolina when I got to Congress. As Alan talked about, I came in with that big class with the likes of folks like Mick Mulvaney, Jeff Duncan, Trey Gowdy, Tim Scott, and they just embraced me. And I just really, really enjoyed those friendships. Of course, my time in Congress, I'll speak about it in a little bit, was kind of like Davy Crockett. It was brief, but it was pretty colorful. I had a lot of fun. And then I got to meet Alan Wilson as an attorney general, and it's just been great. And then as governor, I got to work with your great governor, Henry. I mean, this guy's so funny, too. I mean, could you imagine Henry and John Kennedy going on like a road show together? Serious, Henry. I'm telling you, I'm going to call John up. I want to be the agent. Okay, y'all going to need a lawyer, I guarantee you. And you don't want to be your own lawyer. You know better than that. But it really is just so many great friendships that I've made here in South Carolina. And the one thing that Louisiana and South Carolina, I think, have in common is that we've got a love for family and faith and history. We've got a love for college sports. We may, between Louisiana and South Carolina, have the two best women's basketball programs in the nation. And I just want you to know, if Congress does not act, those women's sports in this country are in danger. So I hope, and we'll talk about that too, we've got to fix college football. I want you to know. And the other thing I like about being here tonight is, at least I know that half of South Carolina will be rooting for LSU on opening day. See what I mean? 50-50. I'll take it. And of course, politics. We love our politics. I mean, people forget that the Tea Party didn't start in Boston. It started 9 days earlier in Charleston. You know, I swear the North. The North reminds me of the Chinese. We create it, they steal it. You know, that's how they are. When I got to Washington, they would say, you know, Washington, you're going to like Washington. You know, that Washington, D.C. has a northern charm and southern efficiency. And I said, well, that can't be true, because southern hospitality, southern work ethic, and southern belief in less government and lower taxes does not exist in D.C., so it can't be true. But I think people in Washington, D.C. have always underestimated states like Louisiana and South Carolina. They hear the accents and they assume we're behind the times. And the funny thing is while they're busy looking down on us, we're busy figuring how to get things done and taking good jobs away from them. Now, I also understand there's a little bit, as Alan talked about, y'all got a little family contest going on here in South Carolina. There's a little runoff going on, just a little one. I just want to say this. I just hope that the winner helps us get rid of the virtual filibuster in the Senate. I mean, that thing has not only made senators lazy, but it has made the Senate unworkable. And like I said earlier, the reason we can't fix college football is actually because the Senate has a filibuster and they just can't seem to fix something as simple as getting our college sports right. But it is so great to see. What's that? Oh, the 7th. You're right. Hey, listen, don't get me started. I wrote a dissertation on that when I was in law school. I'll come back next year and tell you all about it. This man's right. Or maybe y'all should have him come speak next year on the 17th Amendment. He's right, though. You are absolutely right. But you know, it really is so great to see so many people here. And the thing about the Republican Party is it's simple. It's common sense. Ronald Reagan knew it. And he used to say that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And that is true. It is as true today, then, as it is today. And like I said, he knew common sense, and the other president that understands common sense is our President Donald Trump. All it is, it's easy. For America to be great, all we got to do is say no to globalism and yes to Americanism, right? It's that easy. And it works. It works. And they know it works. It's why the Democrat Party has become the Communist Party. And it's why these elections matter so much. And I know that also that South Carolina has had its fair share of drama. As y'all watch the Murdaugh story unfold, I want you to know Louisiana has its own. We got a little banana republic going on. It's called the city of New Orleans. And a couple of months ago, they decided to rip a page out of the Communist Manifesto, Democrat playbook, and indicted our Attorney General. They decided to go into full-fledged legal warfare, and I want you to know that's not working out so well. So if you go from the Murdaugh trial, you can watch the New Orleans debacle going on. I'll send you all, if y'all want. I'll send you the email updates. It's not going to go well for them. But you know, like I said, for 40 or 30 years ago, South Carolina has been the model for other southern states. You landed BMW, you landed Boeing, you made every other state say, how did y'all do it? Why can't we do it? You actually created the spark that ignited what I call the new American economy, which is the Southern economy. And the challenge that we have now as governors is to try to figure out how to abolish in our states, to me, the most un-American tax there is here in this country, and that is the income tax. Alan, that's some stuff we're going to work on. I did tax reform last year, and we lowered our income tax to a flat 3%. We lowered our corporate income tax. Right now, we've got over $150 billion worth of economic projects that have swept into Louisiana. And I don't have to remind you all how crazy the National Democrat Party, I call it the Communist Democrat Party is. Y'all get that front row seat because y'all have the first primary, and y'all get to watch the press basically run them around, the Democrat candidates, as kind of like princesses, and then the media will make clowns out of us. But yet they're the folks that really they don't even know which barbecue sauce to use, or actually whether or not they're out of barbecue or not. And the craziness of that party is unbelievable. Let's just go kind of down the list. The Communist Democrat Party thinks that boys should play in girl sports. They want to, that's right, they want to tax us out of existence. They think that wind and solar alone is going to keep the lights on or the blow dry on. I want you to know, ladies, they're going to come for that curling iron sooner or later. They're the crazies who rely on teachers' unions that have failed our kids. They're crazies who invented participation trophies instead of rewarding freedom to fail or to succeed. They're crazies who, like I said, they want to weaponize our criminal justice system. They want to censor your speech. And they want to tell us that they're doing all of that in the name of protecting democracy. It really is. It's unbelievable. And so I came here really tonight to talk about how important 2028 is. I mean, literally, our republic is on the line. And it took me years to understand how we got in this mess. Because look, I grew up, I'm a product of the 70s and 80s. I mean, I grew up when America's institutions were at its greatest. And you wonder, like, how did we get in this mess? And so the best way I've been able to explain it is to tell you all a story that you may have heard before, or maybe not. But there was once a great Roman general who had turned his back on Rome. He had refused to surrender to the power of Rome, and he began to build a power base in Hispania, which of course is now Spain today. And all of the local tribes in Hispania started to join his cause. And they were a rowdy bunch of tribesmen and barbarians that came to make up his army. And they were pretty tough to keep in line. And as his army grew, they became impatient. And they continued to encourage him to attack the Roman legions that were in the front of him. And he kept telling them that it just wasn't time. But they kept on and on and on. And finally, he gave a group up and said, if y'all think the timing is right, go ahead. And of course, that group that went out there failed miserably in battle. And he came in and rescued them and brought a bunch of them back to his camp. And those soldiers were brave, but they just were not disciplined. They just wanted to rush into that battle. And he knew it. But he knew he could not convince them that it wasn't the time. So he let them go, and then he saved them. So once they had learned the hard way, he gathered all of them at camp, all of the tribal leaders, and he brought out 2 horses. One was a weak and old horse, and the other was a strong 3-4-year-old horse, big tall one, 15, 16 hand horse with a big, beautiful tail. And besides the weak horse, he placed a big and powerful man. And besides the strong horse, he placed an old, feeble man. And then he gave a signal, and the strong man grabbed the weak horse by the tail, the whole tail, and he tried to yank the tail off of that horse in one yank. But the more he would yank, the more that tail would not come. Would never come loose. And the strong man and the weak man stood beside this big strong horse, and he began to pluck the tail of the horse one hair at a time. And before long, that beautiful horse's tail was gone. And that general then explained to them that some problems cannot be solved by force, or by impatience. But if you work steadily and you choose the right moments and you take things one step at a time, even the greatest challenges can be overcome. Not by reckless strength, but by steady and constant effort applied at the right moment. I want you to know something. That is exactly what the Democrat Party in this country has been doing for 50 plus years now. Like the smaller man, besides that big, beautiful horse of liberty, they have plucked freedom from the tail of this country, one hair at a time. One regulation, one cultural rewrite, one court fight, 1 inch of freedom. They pluck it, they go back, they come back, they get another inch, another hair. Until the America that we once knew, unfortunately, looks bare. And too often, we Republicans have behaved like the strong man. We think that if we just pull hard enough, if we just, this one election, that one bill, that one perfect moment, we can take the tail off of the Democrat, communist donkey. And it just doesn't work that way. See, they've been playing the long game. And our ability to fight back requires us to meet them on that same field of battle. If we want to restore the tail of liberty to America, we must recognize that it's not going to be done in one action, in one victory, in one bill, with just one president. We have to win the same way they have beat us. Steady, together, in one deliberate step at a time. Think about what they have done to this country after decades of their patience and their willingness to sacrifice, even sacrifice themselves. I learned that when I was going into Congress, when that big class came in. Remember that big wave? Huge conservative wave. That wave was given to us because Nancy Pelosi was willing to sacrifice Southern Democrats for Obamacare. And yet we still wrangle because of the policies that she and that Democrat Party bestowed on us. And we know the contrast could not be clearer because conservative principles win every time. We know that. We just can't seem sometimes to stay the course. When the Democrats get in office, they keep doing what the smaller man did. They keep going, hair by hair, hair by hair. They stick together. They do not fracture. They take one policy change at a time, and then they wait for another moment. We cannot underestimate their cloak and dagger policies. In fact, y'all know it. I understand that y'all got a front row seat to it. I understand y'all got to experience a little something that we've had in Louisiana. You got a Democrat that tried to run for Attorney General here. Thank God David stumbled. Dave, where you at? Thank God you won. I want you to know, Alan, you're about to have so much fun. It is unbelievable. I'm telling you, it's the best. It is, God, I had so much fun as an attorney. I'm going to talk to you about that too. But I want you to know that I learned the long game the hard way. It was through my own path in life. See, I grew up in a little bitty rural town where everybody knew everybody, where health care was going to the local clinic without a HIPAA form or your parent. They'd stitch you up or cast you up and send you home and send your parents the bill. Nowadays, you got to have both parents, a guardian, a form, got to know what insurance. Think about it. I used to walk in there. I got stitched up plenty of times, trust me. And then I'd go home and I'd be punished for whatever they had to stitch me up for. My dad was an architect. My mother was a school teacher. She coached women's basketball back when women's sports was second class at best. In fact, she created a women's basketball program at this high school, literally out of whole cloth. In fact, the girls that she mustered together had really never played basketball before, and she had them sew their own uniforms in home ec. And she fought with those coaches, with those men coaches consistently for court time for those ladies. And then I grew up in the 80s. Y'all were a little bit insulated from that, but Louisiana was great from about 72 to about 84. Oil prices were so high. We were making so much money. Y'all were complaining about the high price of gasoline, but we were loving it. I just want you to know. And then it came crashing down. And I mean, it broke families. And we didn't have everything we wanted, but I want you to know we had what mattered. We had faith and family, and we had hard work. And I grew up working on my uncle's farm. And you understand something about working on a farm. You got any farmers out here? That's national security. I just want you to know something. There are no shortcuts on a farm. And while I was still in high school, I don't want y'all to think I was such an angel. I know I'm wearing this kind of off-white suit. I was so good in high school. I was such a great pupil. My mother found out that you could sign a young man into the Army of the National Guard at 17. And when she did, she said, you got to go. You are going to the National Guard. And then it was crazy because right after that, my birthday was in December, and so I graduated. I was 17 years old. I went right into basic training at 17. We were the first National Guard unit in the country since World War II to get activated for Operation Desert Storm. I'll never forget, think about that, Desert Storm. At that time, the United States had really not put its military into action since Vietnam. A lot of people were scared. No one knew what was going to happen. They lined us all up. We were getting ready to deploy out of this little bitty town. And my mom standing next to a couple of my other friends' parents, who they all graduated. All of these mothers graduated together. And I remember Miss Carolyn Fugile looking at my mom, and she said, well, and all these mamas are crying. We never gonna see them boys again. My mom was just standing there, kind of stoic, big, tall woman. And so a good friend, Carolyn, says, Wednesday, you don't seem to be sad. She said, well, I'm sad. She said, well, you're not crying. She said, Carolyn, I am gonna sleep for the first time in 20 years. Because I'm gonna know exactly where that boy is and exactly who has him. Now you understand what she was raising? But the Army taught me discipline and service and sacrifice, and that the mission comes first. And when I came home, as Alan said, I served as a police officer and a sheriff's deputy, working my way through college. I was like a real road scholar. I just rode around on the road from college to college for about 9 years. I started a business with my friend when I was in college. I sold a business. I met my wife, who's here today. How about a round of applause for her? She didn't ask for any of this. I got married, started law school. She had a baby. We did all of this, like in 3 years. And people say, how did you do all that? I said, well, it's an ADD without medication. And then when a Senate seat opened up, I decided to run for it. As a sheriff's deputy, I don't know how it is in South Carolina. In Louisiana, the most powerful political figures are the sheriffs in South Louisiana. They kind of control the political tempo. And I learned a lot about politics. So I said, I'm going to run for the Senate. I convinced my wife to let me. I ran. I lost. And of course, I ran again. In Louisiana, you call that a PhD in politics. And like I said, so I ran, we lost. And in 2010, somewhat 3 years later, I go to her and I said, honey, I think I want to run for Congress. It was not good. She didn't speak to me for, she says it's 2 weeks. It felt like 2 months. But we ran. And the people of Louisiana's 3rd Congressional District sent me to Congress. I want you to know, I had never been inside the United States Capitol in my life until I got elected to Congress. Talk about an experience. I remember bringing my wife up there, and boy, look, they were putting on the dog and the pony show, had all these dinners inside the Capitol. My wife looks around, she said, this is what's wrong with this place, ain't nobody working. They got no common sense. But in Congress, it became clear to me that Washington literally was broken. And that too often Republicans were kind of like I said, like that strong man yanking that weak horse's tail. They were chasing moments instead of lasting change. We were waiting for like the perfect majority, the perfect bill. And then we would argue, we would fracture inside of the party, and we would get nothing done. I remember this big class, y'all sent this huge class in 2010 to Congress. I think it was like 85 of us. We get over there, we like the cavalry, like we were ready to go into the fight. We want a strategy, and there's John Boehner. Just tie your horse up, boys. We'll call you when we need you. No plan. Obama's over there just burning down the country. It was so frustrating. I got in so much trouble. I got in almost as much trouble as Joe Wilson. I mean, it's the truth. I'll tell you the story. Look, I get home. You got to remember something. The congressional seat was, my district was ground zero for the BP oil spill. And we had been begging the White House to let us go back to drilling. People were tying up boats and losing jobs, and Obama wouldn't see. I mean, they wouldn't even talk to us. It was just so frustrating. And then he called us back. Remember that, Sharon? In August. He was going to give a job speech. And he called us back right when the New Orleans Saints were going to play the Green Bay Packers, right after we won the Super Bowl. I was like, I can't believe I'm going to miss that game. Go hear this man. And he ain't going to be, I know he's not going to talk about how to really create jobs in the private sector. And as I was leaving, my wife said, do not do anything to embarrass me. I said, don't worry, I'll try not to. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I got in my office, I started, and I made him make me this big poster that said drilling equals jobs. And I was so scared. I didn't know anything. Again, so I made 2 of them. I put them in each pocket. I didn't know if they were going to frisk us or whatever as we went into the chamber. And I get to my seat, and I go early because, it's no assigned seating unless you're in the Senate, And I go and I find me a place right above the teleprompter because, he didn't go anywhere without his teleprompter back then. And I sit down, and I've been sitting there, and I think Mick comes by me, and Jeff and Joe, your dad comes sit right behind me. And so I show Mick, I'm like, check this out. And Mick's like, well, how many you got? And I said, well, I don't have any but one. And so he tells Joe, he says, Joe, look what Landry has. And Joe's like, whatever you do, don't say anything. I said, okay, I got it. And so Joe said, what you going to do with it? I said, well, here's the way I figure. I said, I'm going to give the president the benefit of the doubt, but if all he talks about is creating government jobs, I'm going to pull this thing out. And I'm going to show him that this is how you create jobs, that this is how you ignite an economy, that it starts with energy. And we have to be energy dominant. We have to quit relying on the Middle East and other countries that hate us for our energy. And so it went about 15 minutes into the speech. I couldn't take it anymore. And I pulled it out, and this was back in the press gallery, is right above where the president speaks. And I mean, it sounded like machine gun fire from those cameras. And I held it there until I couldn't take it anymore, and I knew I was in trouble. And I mean, the next day, that sign had proved to America how you really create jobs. And I got in trouble. John Boehner brought me in his office, and he told me that the Democrats wanted to censor me. And I told him, please let them. I'm going to go 10 points up in my district. But he didn't like me, and he knew he was going to get rid of me because we had to redistrict. Louisiana had lost population. But I tell you, it's being able to have the guts to stand up in the face of adversity and stupidity in this country. That is what's going to make America great. But I want you to know, if you're going to fix America, I want you to know this. You're going to only fix America by fixing our states. Okay? The Constitution is a contract between the states and the people. The federal government is a byproduct of the Constitution. We want to fix it, we've got to fix our state. One state at a time. Because fixing our states means stronger schools, safer communities, better jobs, and more accountable government. That's what creates a stronger United States. You know, and another lesson that I learned in Congress was this, that Congress had steadily surrendered its authority to bureaucrats. And they've done it. They've done it since the 70s by passing vague legislation, leaving the real decision making to unelected bureaucrats, activists, judges who write the rules of the law or tell you what the law means. And that isn't representative government. That's why we can feel our nation slipping from beneath our feet. And every time Congress gives away a piece of that authority, it takes another piece of self-government away from us and from the American people. And you know what's the shame of it? They give it to some bureaucrat who will never know, or worst of all, they give it to the courts. And then the courts write the rules and decide the questions that belong to the people's representatives. And that's how we lose liberty's tail. But that's not what the founders intended. And so I saw an opportunity to run for Attorney General. Because I was like, that's where the fight is. I felt it. It's dysfunctional in Congress. I could never get anything done. We got so much done as Attorney Generals. We could challenge the federal overreach when it came to our schools, our businesses, our energy, our constitutional rights. Alan and I stood side by side. It was so fun. Fighting for life, liberty, the rule of law, our great men and women in uniform and first responders, the unborn. And we would make it clear that our states would not surrender to unelected bureaucrats. I made Louisiana ground zero. I don't know, I had so much fun, I'm telling you. Like, I made Louisiana ground zero for the fight for COVID. I'm the fellow who sued Mark Zuckerberg on the 2020 election. It was, right. I want you to know something. I also had a whole lot of fun deposing Anthony Traitor Fauci. People thought I was crazy when we made that. When we instituted that lawsuit, everyone thought I was crazy. Even Alan thought I was a little crazy. We thought I was a lot crazy. And I mean, look, the Twitter files what came out of that suit. We got to see everything that the Biden administration was doing to censor American speech out of one little lawsuit in the state of Louisiana. And I don't agree that that's where we should be creating policy. I want you to know that. But that's where the fights are, and that's where the field was. And like President Trump, I like to win. And I like to play to win. But you know, there was something else that plagued me right when I became Attorney General. And it had to do with the way we had lost the legislative power to draw our maps. Because hair by hair and case by case, for years, Louisiana and other states were trapped. I know y'all were as well. Under consent decrees, federal oversight, court-driven redistricting cases. And as the Democrats were working the system, they've made us play defense. And I do not like to play defense. I like to play offense. And that's exactly what we did. Because I kept watching these redistricting cases collide with the Equal Protection Clause. And I could see an opportunity to take this to the Supreme Court if we could position ourselves right. But you know, Alan will tell you, in the law, being right is not enough. You have to have the right case in the right posture at the right time in front of the right court. And so we watched and we waited and we filed suit and we legally postured. And we really thought this case out of Alabama was going to help us. And actually the Supreme Court took the Alabama case and the Louisiana case up at the same time. And then they ruled against us. In the Alabama case, they sent ours back. Now, most people would have just stopped there. I didn't. I told my team, I said, we're going to adjust. We're going to tighten that record and we're going to keep building. And then I got elected governor. And my president, for being elected governor, right when I got sworn in, the Fifth Circuit gave me 15 days to make a decision as to whether they were going to let a liberal judge in Louisiana draw Louisiana's congressional districts, or I was going to let the legislature draw it. And literally, 14 days after being sworn in as governor, I called the legislature into session, and we decided that we were going to draw the map. I mean, we were going to make the record clear that map was being forced on us. And I want you to know, it cost Louisiana and this country a Republican seat. And I want you to know that I took it on the chin from some of my very close friends in the Republican Party. I mean, we had a hell of a family fight. They couldn't understand it. How could I have done that? But I knew that's what the long game required. Because you don't get to put the tail back on all at once. And throughout that time, we took that map and we carefully wound it through the court system in front of the United States Supreme Court. In this year, ladies and gentlemen, that Calais victory now cements Republican majorities. If we're willing to take it, if we're willing to understand what they have given us, if we are willing to understand that they have finally ceded the constitutional right that belongs to the states in our hand, that Calais victory should mean that Republicans control Congress for the very, very long future ahead of us. Because patience and unity give us that chance if we take it, if we stay the course. I mean, look, I want you to know something. There's another thing that Republicans have a hard time doing. We have a hard time knowing what winning looks like. We do. Because we seem to be so caught up in the chaos that the Democrats put us in, we don't know what winning. I want you to know something. I came here to South Carolina to thank you. Because it was you who put Donald Trump on the map in 2016. It was you who gave this country the opportunity. And guess what he did in when he became president? Let's talk about the wins that belong to you. He immediately began reshaping the courts. Not in one yank, but let's think about it. Let's think about where we've been. 2016, 2026, a decade. Case by case. Dobbs. Ended Roe. Like, think about that. Oh, my mother was a pro-life activist. That was all. I hated that she died before that case. I really did. I know she was celebrating in heaven, but I'm going to tell you something. So many people had worked so hard. We restored the right of law-abiding Americans to carry in self-defense. We made affirmative action illegal in our colleges. The Chevron doctrine is dead. Bureaucrats don't interpret the law. Come on, come on. The EPA cannot remake our power grid. It cannot treat your backyard like the Mississippi River. I mean, coaches can pray. Artists can't be forced to speak. Public employees can't be forced to be in a union. I mean, literally, we should have fireworks. But it wasn't done all at once. You see what I'm talking about? You understand where we are and what we have to do? We cannot get impatient. We cannot try to snatch it all at once. But there is one thing that will break the long game every time. I'm going to wrap this up. I want you to notice something. I want you to know the thing that will break the long game. I want you to know the thing that has infected this country in the last 30 years. It's one word. It's fear. You know, 83 years ago, a president told a weary nation that the only thing we had to fear was fear itself. And those words ring just as true today as it did back then. Because you see, fear makes good people impatient. Fear makes conservatives grab the whole tail all at once. And we live in this age of manufactured crises, of reckless spending, open borders, a culture storm against family and faith, and adversities who sense the weakness of America. Fear is the tyrant's favorite weapon. It convinces strong people to trade liberty for so-called security. It whispers that we should close our eyes to the border chaos, accept America's declining energy dominance, or shrug at our cities as they bleed from hug-a-thug policies. Oh yeah, that's my favorite line. It tells parents to yield their God-given rights over their children's education for indoctrination. But yet look at our history. When the British burned Washington, what did we do? We rebuilt. When the Nazis threatened civilization, the greatest generation stormed Normandy and freed the world. When terrorists struck on 9/11, ordinary citizens became heroes. When hurricanes devastate our coastal cities, whether it's in the Gulf of America or the Atlantic, neighbors pull together, not waiting for Washington, but rekindling an American spirit. Those are our moments. This is our moment to reject fear, to reject the fear that says we can secure our borders while welcoming legal immigration. We can reject the fear of energy, of having energy independence, because it is possible. We can reject the fear that is peddled in our schools that America is irredeemably flawed. Let me tell you something. There is no other country, like Ronald Reagan, there's nowhere left to go but here. Our founding principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not relics. They are the blueprint for the way that humanity flourishes. So I want you to know something. To the parents who are here today that are fighting for school choice, for their choice, for money to follow the child, you are the guardians of the next generation. To the entrepreneurs who are battling the bureaucracy, your vision builds prosperity, not the government. To our veterans and our first responders, you remind us daily what courage looks like. To every American who feels the weight of these times, it is now that we should stand tall. It is now that we should say, we will take back America. We don't need bigger government. We need bolder citizens. We need a new, renewed faith in God, in stronger families, vibrant communities, and we should reject anyone who does not believe in America exceptionalism. And when fear yanks or knocks at our door or yanks at our coat, we answer with faith and with facts and with fierce determination that in God we trust. So let me leave you with this. Every comeback in this country started with people who refused to quit. People like you. I know you don't quit because that's why you're here. People who stayed in the fight when it wasn't easy and it didn't look like we were winning. And here's what I know about you. You know what it's like to fight. And you know what it takes to fight. And winning is not one election or one speech. And it's not one yank of the tail. Winning is for the next generation. And it's hair by hair, win by win, state by state. Because the future doesn't belong to the loudest voice in the room. It belongs to those who keep building, who stay the course, who put the future ahead of the moment. And I want you to know something. This just isn't my story, okay? It's your story. It's America's story. And the path isn't always straight, and sometimes you lose before you win. But remember, it's the steady effort and the long game that took this small town country boy from a farm to the United States Capitol, to the Supreme Court, to the governor's mansion. And right here in South Carolina, you can put liberty's tail back on this country in the same way that it was pulled off, with steady determination, with patience and perseverance. And that long game strategy will ensure us that America's best days are yet ahead of us and not behind us. They're right in front of us. And remember this, that we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And so tonight in South Carolina, I ask you, will you cast aside the fear? Will you embrace the long game? Will you get to work and make sure that the United States House of Representatives and that United States Senate stay in control of the Republican Party? Will you do that? Well, if you will do that, then I'm done. God bless you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Governor. Y'all give him one more round of applause. Thank you so much, sir. You know, years ago we had two senators from South Carolina who folks in D.C. used to say each had to have a different translator. They were speaking two different languages. You know, I don't know if you're not speaking the same language as Senator Kennedy does. You said he's from the other side of the state, and I get that. You know, think people on the coast talk a little different than those of us who are from different parts of the state, but I appreciate that and appreciate you coming and being with us here this evening. As you all know, we're here this evening, though, in the shadow of events we didn't foresee. And, of course, having to have a primary and fix a nomination we didn't think we were going to have to take care of, and going through some times, as Alan says, family squabbles. But We want to take a few moments here this evening, though, and recognize what's happened, what's transpired, and who's not with us here this evening. So, Governor McMaster, would you please come forward and speak to us?
Thank you, Drew. You mentioned that Governor Landry was colorful. Shortly after the election, the president had all the Republican governors, except a couple that were going for cabinet agencies up at down to Mar-a-Lago. And we were all in there, everybody all dressed up and slick, hair comb, had on dark suits and such, trying to be distinguished and respectable looking. And then here came a guy had on a powder blue, light blue suit. Somebody said, "Who in the world is that?" We said, "That's Governor Landry from Louisiana." He said, "That explains everything." That's the real governor there. He did a great job as Attorney General. I didn't know about those other things, but we're counting on you, as you know. And we're going to be counting on Alan, too. And the others we're going to be counting on. Let me just say a few things. I, too, want to recognize my favorite wife, Peggy, right over there. I might have told you all this, but I'll tell it again. I was talking to somebody, and recently I said, we just celebrated our 48th wedding anniversary. He said, "That's good." He said, "We just celebrated our 60th wedding anniversary." Of course, I said, "Well, man, that's terrific." He said, "Yeah, we know the secret to a long, happy marriage." Of course, I said, "Well, what is the secret to a long, happy marriage?" He says, "Every week, my wife and I, we go find a nice little quiet restaurant, go out for a nice little quiet candlelight dinner. I go on Tuesday, she goes on Thursday." One person that ain't here tonight is Lindsey Graham. I remember last time we were here. You remember, those of you who may have been here, he was talking and President Trump called in and congratulated everybody and said hello. I want to say this. My children used to call him Uncle Lindsey. I've known him for a long time, as many of you have. I want to say I have never seen anybody like Lindsey Graham. I have never seen anybody so dedicated to this state, this country, and his very vital work as Lindsey Graham. I don't think he did anything else. And he did more and got more done for more people in more places around this state, and said nothing about it except for the people involved than probably anybody in American politics. He was a dynamic, iconic, loyal, honest man, and we owe him a whole lot. I was on the inside with a lot of things as Attorney General and as Lieutenant Governor and as Governor, and got to see that firsthand. So I want y'all all to remember what he gave us. He changed this state, he changed this country. I think time will show that his efforts, the direction in which he pointed us, many times for the short, immediate game, but more often for the long, steady game for this country. We're going to miss him. Just a few things. First, I want to thank Pamela Ebbett. For 8 years, she was at my side. She's loyal, she's determined, she's smart, she worked hard. And Pam, I appreciate that work that you did. Thank you very much. Just a few things I got to tell you since I got the microphone, and I'll be brief. We are booming, as you know. We are called a handshake state. They don't call any other state that. You know what that means? The chairman of BMW said it twice at the 25th and the 30th anniversary up in Spartanburg. He was standing like this, talking to a group like y'all. And he said, South Carolina is a handshake state. He said, and I quote, he said, "I'd rather have your hand in mine and your word than a signed contract." You know where else they say that about a state? Nowhere. I've heard it time and time again in different ways. We have to understand that South Carolina is a different place, different kind of people. All states are a little different. If you live in a state with no trees and a lot of sand and a lot of desert, you're going to do things one way. You're probably not going to make your life catching fish or things like that. People are different. They come from different places. We came from 9 European countries over time. We came from 19 West African cultures, which today are 4 West African countries over time. We were also already here, many of us, way back 10,000, 12,000 years. The Native Americans, or we used to call them Indians most of the time. All those people over those years, different conditions, different reasons, some persecuted, some kidnapped and brought, some came for a better life, some were running for different reasons. But we all came to this place. And in this place, we learned we had to deal with each other, had to lean on each other, and had to trust each other. And your word had to be what counted, because that's all there was. There's no time for records and contracts, things like that. But we went through tough time. Every war that this country has had, we've been in it from the very beginning, even before there was a country. And we're living in paradise. You go look now. Do you know there are trees in the Bidler Forest down in Dorchester County that are 1,800 years old? The whole forest never been cut. It's the oldest Tupelo cypress forest in the world. We got rivers named after those tribes that I mentioned. We have the mountains. We have the ocean. We have the creek. Half the salt marsh on the East Coast is in South Carolina. Half of that salt marsh is in Beaufort County. You can't find live oak trees in the desert. We are covered up with a special place with people that over the centuries are special, are different, and it means something. And ladies and gentlemen, it is the people and the places of this state is why we are booming today. No other state is doing the things that we're doing, even Louisiana, which is just crushing it. But no other state is doing what we're doing. And it's because of the people and the places, and we have to protect them. That's one reason what I want to do. We have about 20 million acres of land in this great state. We have about 3.5 million of those acres are protected by parks, conservation easements, or different things. We don't need to put concrete on all of it. You remember Joni Mitchell sang the song way back? It said, cut down the trees and put up a parking lot. We don't need to do that. Right now we have about $1.2 million in city limits. We don't need to pave the whole state. We have to be sure to protect our culture, protect what God has given us in forests, fields, clean water, beautiful spaces. I love to fly over this state and then fly over the next one, and then fly over the next one, and look down and see what the difference is. And I'll tell you, there's no place in this world that I'd rather be than South Carolina. I'm proud of the places, I'm proud of the people, and it's because of the people that we are booming. Let me go through just a few things here right quick, just to remind you. Right now, there are 83% of the working age people, that's prime age, something like 25 to 50 something, are either working for a job or looking. That's one of the five highest in the country. We have, and everybody knows, the finest technical college system in the whole world. We have universities that have not raised tuition in 7 years because of our policies. We have cut the income tax. Jeff, we've cut it from 7% down to 5.21, and we're going down. We're going to keep on going until we get it down. We've cut in property taxes. We increased the homestead exemption. We raised teacher pay, ladies and gentlemen. In case you see teachers smiling these days, that's because we went from $30,100 for a minimum starting salary for a teacher in South Carolina to today, $50,500, with the average starting at $64,500 in South Carolina. that exceeds the Southeast average. We expanded four-year kindergarten statewide. We built Education Scholarship Trust Fund, the Meeting Street Scholarship Fund, that's private people as well as some state money. We're going to have anybody who wants to go to college is willing to work and has got some sort of a record for being willing to work. They're going to be able to go to college, go to technical college, go to academic college in South Carolina, and that's going to make a big difference here. We need those scholarships. We need them bad, and we're getting them. But ladies and gentlemen, at our technical colleges, it's not like it used to be. Started off as called them trade schools. It's back in the 60s. Governor Hollings asked a man named Stan Smith, he's from Columbia, he's a business leader, he's a banker and a businessman, asked him to put it together, and he did. And we have 16 locations now, and we stuck with what we started out to do. And that's not to teach French and teach literature, but teach people how to go to work. And it has worked, and everybody, all the secretaries of U.S. Commerce secretaries say, Wilbur Ross said it 5 or 10 times while I was in his presence in this state in the first Trump administration, says South Carolina has got the best technical college system in the entire world. If you have a plant, you have a factory, you're going to expand. If you're here or you look at it, cook up a curriculum to teach what and train what you need to have to be successful, and do it for free and bring you to this state. And that's what we're doing right now all over South Carolina. No other state does that. Roads, when I took office, we had $2.7 billion into roads at that time working. Right now, we got $7 billion. I know it slows you down a little bit here and there, but it's going to speed you up later. We now have a law enforcement, a certified, trained law enforcement, uniformed officer in every one of the 1,284 public schools in South Carolina, save just a few because we can't find anybody to take the money and take the job. We've raised the law enforcement pay. Some of them went up as much as 73%. We got broadband going to every place in South Carolina. Some of the rural areas have better broadband than even the cities. But let me go back real quick to the beginning. I tell you, I'm proud of this state. I'm proud of the people. Way back, this was in 1739. I want you to listen to what the report to King George said, and I quote this. This is from the Excellency James Glenn, Esquire, Captain General, Governor, Commander-in-Chief, in and over all His Majesty's province of South Carolina, and so forth. And this is what it said. Charlestown, the metropolis, 1739. Charlestown, the metropolis of the province of South Carolina, is pleasantly situated between the Cooper and Ashley rivers, which form a spacious and convenient harbor. The climate of Carolina, formerly called Florida, is extremely agreeable and wholesome, and compared with the rest of the northern hemisphere, may well be looked upon as the most temperate part of the habitable earth on the north side of the equator. It is the fairest and most fruitful province belonging to Great Britain. So it is no wonder of Charlestown, which a few years ago was a small and inconsiderate place, be now a very great and flourishing town, adorned with handsome and commodious buildings, both private and public, amongst which the Church of St. Philip, which many of you have visited, may justly be reckoned the finest structure in America. Thus, this town and province of Carolina may justly be esteemed the most flourishing of any of His Majesty's dominions in America. And I say that was published according to an act of Parliament by B. Roberts and W.H. Toms, June 9, 1739. And it has not changed. We have not lost any of that they're talking about in that report. And it is there waiting on us to use, to glorify, to strengthen, and to present to the world, to show what it is to have a beautiful state with beautiful people, beautiful flora and fauna, and that puts us in a category that not only is healthy for those of us living here, but from people all over the world want to come see it. It is a wonderful thing that we have, but we have to realize, my message is we got to realize that we got something that just doesn't come up overnight. And as Jeff said, the governor, we are in danger